Right, so this is the test ride of the Kawasaki Vulcan S. This is a 2018 model, so let's just jump on it and take it for a quick ride. So as you know by looking at this video, I'm going to be comparing the Vulcan S to the Honda Rebel as potentially a second bike, as a little cruiser. Now I'm not after a powerful speed machine, I just want something simple, easy to ride. Now the first thing I've noticed when riding this, I've got to try and remember where to put my feet on the pegs, because unlike all the other bikes that I've ridden, this is massively different. It's got quite a far reach. However, that said, it's not uncomfortable. It's still relatively comfy riding position. Downshifting, it shifts down quite nicely. It's a little bit jolty. However, the display is really clear, really comfortable to see. You got your speedo, your rev counter nice and big at the top, gear indicator, clock, mileometer, and a good old fuel tank. So completely flat-footed, both feet down, nice and easy. It does take a lot of getting used to with regards to the feet in position. You're having ridden bikes where your feet are behind you, you just want to put your feet straight back. So I've got to keep reminding myself that I'm actually on a forward position bike. Now the clutch lever and the brake, they're both adjustable, which is always nice, but at the moment on the setting they're on, I don't have any issues reaching. The wind mirrors, they give you really nice visibility, but I think they look hideous. They are not a pretty wind mirror. So if I was to buy this bike over the Honda Rebel 500, I'd probably end up changing the wing mirrors to some bar end wind mirrors, just for the aesthetics really. I just don't think they look that nice. I've only been on this bike literally a few moments now, and straight away it's comfy. The seat holds you in a really nice position. It is not uncomfortable at all. It's got almost like a little lumbar support, you could say, with the seat. The wind resistance in and around town, well, cruising around 30 miles an hour, is not giving me any issues whatsoever. To be honest, I can barely feel it in my chest, which is quite nice. But one thing I am finding is quite a snatchy throttle. I think if I were to own this as well, the foot pegs, I would need to adjust them, bring them back slightly. The reach is just that little bit too much. When you go to get your foot back up on the pegs quickly, you kind of feel you're trying to search for them. But put on the way, the clutch control is really nice. It feels like it just doesn't like moving around in first gear too much. Accelerate, second gear, up to 30. Oh, easy, plenty of power. Now obviously being a low ride, you are situated quite low to the ground. Handles nice. The suspension is absolutely phenomenal. It is so bouncy. I probably want to stiffen it up a little bit. We've also got an eco display, so you can see if you're economically riding. However, I think realistically, if you've got a motorbike and you're not going on a long distance ride, the last thing you want to think about is your fuel. You just want to enjoy the ride. But I'm having no issues at all whatsoever with the way this bike is riding. I'm really enjoying it. It just flows. But first impressions, I really like this. I think the Honda Rebel has got a strong competition now. I don't know what I'm going to do. If you haven't checked out my video already on the Honda Rebel 500, go check it out. It is a great bike. It is really fun and easy to ride. It sounds amazing with a Scorpion exhaust, and that is one thing I would look to do on this one. If I was to get the Kawasaki Vulcan, I would without a doubt end up having to put an exhaust on. And being a brand new bike, I think it actually comes in a performance package which has an arrow, like a matte black arrow exhaust, so that's something that I'd have to consider. Right, suspension, yeah, nice and easy. That was quite a dip in the drain cover, but I handled it effortlessly. So how's it on a roundabout? Nice and easy, cruises around lovely. But one thing I am liking is actually having my feet completely flat on the ground. The seat is extremely comfortable, really nice. I think you could do a relatively long ride on this bike. Your legs are stretched out, so you're not going to get any like aches and pains in your knees, because your knees aren't bent. Well, they are slightly, but not too much. Your back is pretty much bolt upright, and the reach as well isn't that bad. I do like how the handlebars are set so far back and also down slightly. Now I know this bike is really adjustable. You can adjust the handlebars. There's 2 positions for the handlebars that can be adjusted. There's 3 different seats to give you a different reach, and also there is 3 different positions for the pegs, I believe, the foot pegs. So it is one of the very few bikes out there that you can actually fully tailor it to your own riding style. Although one thing I am finding, when you are going relatively slow, the throttle is quite snatchy. Clutch control is really nice, real good clutch. It's nice and light, accelerates nice up to the speed limits, it's not laggy, and for a 60 horsepower bike it performs lovely. It's really nice. I've got no problem with the power on this bike. Right, so we've got a roundabout now. Let's give it a really good test out on this roundabout. So we'll do it in 2nd gear. Go round the roundabout, goes round nicely. It does dip in quite well. Beautiful. But it's got a bit of a sense of it wants to be up in the higher revs, so it's not as jolty. Cool, that seat is really springy. I think the suspension would definitely need hardening up slightly. Still trying to get used to my feet in position. I haven't quite got used to it yet. Absolutely lovely. It's got ample power to push you around, quite nice. So let's go up to 40 again, 30 miles an hour, 4th gear, easy. So what are the negatives of this bike that I've stumbled upon on my few moments of being on it? At low revs it does feel a little bit jolty, like just bimbling around. It feels like it wants to pick up the pace a little bit, but manoeuvring is really easy. Such a cool little bike. The indicators are nice and easy to find. You could probably easily scrape the pegs on this bike, I have no doubt. Decisions, what do I do? The Honda Rebel or the Vulcan? Looks wise, the Kawasaki Vulcan steals it. It has to be 1-0 to the Vulcan for the looks. And I think if I were to get this one, it would be in complete black. I think the black style just sets it off a lot better. With a nice exhaust, it would look pretty good and sound lovely. Comfort wise, this seat is really nice. The bike is lovely. It gets up to speed absolutely fine. There's no, actually I think I figured out, right, let's stay 2nd gear and stay 30. Right, that's less jolty. So if you don't go too high up the gears, you can sustain the speed you want a lot easier without having to feel like you're on a kangaroo. But power wise, I think if anyone says this bike is underpowered, they're wanting more than what this bike offers in terms of, it's a 650cc motorcycle with 60 horsepower. If you want a powerful bike and you want the power that a Ninja ZX-10R gives you, go get one. Don't ride a Vulcan. It's as simple as that. But if you're after a cruiser bike without a massive heavy lump of an engine, I think the Vulcan is a pretty good bike to go have a look at. The front brake is good, the rear brake is shocking. Right, foot flat on the rear brake and we're slowing. Yeah, that's awful. That rear brake is dreadful, but the front brake is really good. Yeah, great front brake, awful rear brake. Being so low to the ground as well is quite nice. The controls are easy to get to, sounds nice. I am relatively impressed with this bike. Display, you got indicators, neutral light, high beam, and that's basically it. Yes, handling wise, this bike is cracking. It does handle really well. This bike is only going to be used at high speeds, just getting to and from the odd place. Where this bike will be used more, if I were to buy it, would be just general day-to-day use, jumping on, pop down the shots, pop out for a ride. My main bike is the Honda CBF 1000 Grand Tourer. That is the bike that if I need to go out in the rain, if I need to go out on a long distance ride, that is a bike that I will take. And this bike will purely be just for a bit of fun. Now there are a few things I'd want with this bike if I were to buy it. Like I mentioned a minute ago, the Arrow exhaust is definitely one, and also a headlight cowling. So I'll try and put a picture up now of the actual headlight with its little surround on. I think it's quite a nice little touch, just to make it look a little bit more personal, really. Now the only issue I'm getting with the feet in is I'm pressing down on the actual bracket there when I'm going to reach for the pegs. Again, that's just going to come in time. You're just going to get used to your bike, and I don't think you're going to have too many issues on it. Just return this back to the dealership. It was only a quick ride just to see what I thought of it, and I'm very, very impressed. Now I'll be taking the Honda out tomorrow, but for you guys it's going to be in a few moments, and you'll see what my opinion is of the new 2021 Honda Rebel. Right, one last pull away. Oh, nearly had the front wheel off the ground then. So it's got plenty of torque, a lovely amount of torque. I am really, really impressed. It's got the right amount of power for the road, and having to do any overtakes or things like that, you're not going to struggle. Filtering, I don't think you're going to struggle. The wind mirrors are in, as you can see there. The bar end is there, and the wind mirror is about an inch or two in, so you're not going to clip wind mirrors of cars as you go past, or if you do, it's going to be with the bar ends. So as you can see, the bit I was on about there, you've got that plate, then you've got your foot rest. So what I was doing is I was kind of catching my heel right there. But again, I think that's just something that's going to come in time. You're going to know your bike, and you're going to get to know where everything is. Now going over that bump, that was easy. Had no problem at all. Right, so that concludes my roundup of the Rebel. Let's get over to the Honda. Right, so the second part of this two-part review, we're looking at the Honda Rebel 500. So you've just seen my review on the Kawasaki Vulcan S. Let's jump on the Rebel and see how I get on with it. This is in a lovely matte black colour, same as the Vulcan. Let's get these mirrors adjusted. Now the seat height on this does feel a lot lower than the Vulcan. The feet are a lot further back straight away. However, that said, on the Vulcan, obviously you can adjust the seat, you can adjust the reach of the handles, and you can also adjust the peg position. So that's not a problem. The positioning isn't an issue at all. So straight away, I do feel a lot lower to the ground on this bike. It's not as high up as the Vulcan. It's got quite a low feeling on this bike. It feels a lot smaller. It accelerates away nicely. Indicators are easy to find. Now upon acceleration, it doesn't feel like it's really aggressive acceleration. It feels quite flat. Now I have ridden the Rebel before, so I'm not knocking this bike. I think this bike is fantastic. It's a really good 500cc bike. If you just want a cruiser, something simple, this is a great bike. However, this review is all about would I enjoy owning one. Now, I'm not feeling a lot of wind resistance, which is quite nice, but again I think the low down squatted seated position kind of takes any sort of wind off your chest. The seat is a lot harder than the Vulcan, and you're a little bit more arched forward, but it's not too uncomfortable. I don't know how I'd fare up on a long distance ride on this. The feet are obviously a lot, the knees are obviously a lot more bent than the Vulcan, but the Vulcans are a lot straighter. However, like I said, you can adjust the Vulcan to bring the knees in a little bit more. The reach does feel a bit further on this bike. Wind mirrors are good. The wind mirrors are a lot better looking than the Vulcans. The Vulcans' wind mirrors are hideous. But again, that's something that can be changed. The display on the Rebel is 10 times better than the Vulcan. It's a digital display. The Vulcan has part digital, part analog. This doesn't have a rev counter. Now, when I reviewed this last time, you got all different trips, and then no, there's no rev counter. If you know if this bike has a rev counter, please leave a comment in the comment section and tell me where I'm going wrong, so I would really like to know. Right, handling around the roundabout, because we've done that on the Vulcan a minute ago. Bounces out a little bit. Now, as Teapot One says, Nationals, and there's a lot of traffic, so couldn't get the Nationals. Actually picked up nicely. Easy to filter, very easy to filter. The suspension is quite comfy. It's not a rock solid suspension, but again, that's something that can be changed, so I can't really comment too much on the suspension. Now again, I'm not too worried about taking this on motorways, high speed roads, because the idea of me getting a second bike, being a little cruiser, is purely for easy riding, bimbling around, not high speeds. That's not what they're designed for. And there we go, a BMW could not get past this. Little 500cc, and that BMW had nothing. So it's got plenty of power. Absolute ample amount of power. I do believe this seat can be swapped out for a comfier one. So even though I'm not finding this seat all that incredibly comfortable, it's not an issue. Now it does feel really soft and springy on the rear, which, I don't know, I think it might need to be hardened up for my body weight. But pulling away, it's got loads of power to pull away. When you put your feet down, you're flat to the floor, and it does look really nice. I really like the look of this bike. It's got a nice matte black tank. Right, so I've just been riding this through a few nationals, through a few twisties, a little bit of town riding, just to see how this bike handles, and it's quite light on the front end, which is quite unnerving when you are going at higher speeds and there's some nice twisty roads. So that is a slight negative, but it packs a real punch. You've got no problems overtaking at all. It really does just overtake effortlessly. It sounds really nice, and obviously with the Scorpion exhaust it will sound even better. If you haven't already, check out my video on the full review of this bike, because it is a very good bike. I feel slightly too big for this bike. Now I'm only 5'7", so relatively speaking I'm perfect height and size for this bike. However, I feel really arched forward, and it's slightly getting a bit tiring on my back already. It's not aching my back, it's just getting a bit tiring. So yeah, I think I'm swaying slightly more towards the Kawasaki Vulcan, because it feels like a bigger bike. I mean, looking at the tank in between my legs, it is very, very narrow, so it doesn't feel like I've got a lot of bike underneath me, but it does it really, really nice. It performs really, really well for a 500. It is. I'm not going into this thinking, is this bike going to do 90 miles an hour in first gear? So there isn't a lot in it between the two bikes. And I have found if I do sit further back on this bike, right up against the back of the seat, the riding position does feel a little bit more comfortable. Sitting further forward, I feel like my arms are bent, I'm cramped up. Right, so we've had a quick drink, bite to eat. Now I'm going to conclude my ride on the Rebel. So I've had a good hour in the saddle on this one. Constant riding, and it isn't as comfortable as the Vulcan. I'll say that now, it's definitely not as comfortable as that Vulcan. That's not to say it's an uncomfortable bike. It is still a good bike, but I just don't think it is offering exactly what I want. I've got a little bit more time left on it, so I might change my opinion. So I've sat right back at the back of the seat now. I'm stretched out a little bit further. So 30 miles an hour, third gear, accelerate up to 40. There we go. So the bike has plenty of power for the road. I'm not going to dispute that at all. The Vulcan comes in with about 20 brake horsepower more than this one. I would like my feet stretched out a little bit further on this. I think they're just slightly too bent on the knee. A little bit more of a cruiser style is what I'm after. And in some ways, I think a bit more power. So I don't think it's going to take a very clever person to figure out what bike I'm leaning more towards at the moment. But it does open up nice when you want it to. The positives about this bike: it looks nice. It's got a digital information gauge in the middle. It is quite dull, so that is something which needs, I think, addressing. Honda at night, this is really, really good. And if you haven't already, check out my video on the Honda CB650R at night, part 2. That shows you exactly what this is like at night. Really vivid, really bright in your face. The cockpit of the bike is really basic, and I do like that front fairing around the nose and around the headlight. It looks good, but the Kawasaki bends over slightly more around the actual dials, so you've got a bit more of a meaner front end, should I say. The wind mirrors are good. The seating position's okay. I am finding, like I keep saying, that I've got to push back on the seat a little bit more to make it a bit more of an enjoyable ride. Going around at high speed on here, yeah, it's not too bad. It is a nice bike. If you're in the market for a 50cc motorcycle, I would consider the Honda Rebel. Now, what don't I like about this bike? The leg position, I think it needs to be further out. I feel personally like I'm quite scrunched up and high and over the bike, so I do feel like I am too big for this bike. I would like a little bit more power, a little bit more torque, but that isn't to say that this doesn't have enough. It has more than enough for the road. But I think to make it that little bit more easier and effortless to ride, a tiny bit more power will do. It's good that it's got a gear indicator, I do like that. But another negative, it's got no rev counter, and I really do want a rev counter on this bike, just so you know what's going on with your revs, how much more you've got in it before you need to change up. Just simple things like that. So this is going to conclude my review and comparison on the Honda Rebel 500 CMX. It is a good bike, but I think it's just lacking something for me. It's just lacking, yeah, I can't put my finger on it, but there's definitely something that it's lacking. So you're gonna have to wait until next week's video to see which bike I have bought. Pop a comment in the comment section below, let me know what you think I went for, the Honda Rebel or the Kawasaki Vulcan. So until next time, thank you for watching Resolutions. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, give me a big thumbs up, ride safe, and we'll see you soon.